be kind, and subscribe.
Welcome on, bienvenue, welcome to this episode of United Nations of Horror with your hosts Mark and Jason. Hi Jason.
Hi Mark, hi everyone. How are you doing today?
Yeah, not bad. I have a few issues, dental issues, but I don't really want to talk about that. But if I sound slightly different, it's because I'm talking with my mouth slightly more closed than usual. But otherwise, I'm fine. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, Mark, you're hardcore, man. Doing the show, even in spite of dental issues. We'll just say that. But
yes.
Man, you've been through it the past couple of days. So I appreciate you doing this. Glad you're here. I really am surprised you felt like recording. To be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I'm really enjoying talking about this film, and I enjoy watching it, so I'm keen to talk about it before it fades from memory. It's one of those. Because I watch so many movies. I watch a vast number of movies. I watch it probably 2 a day.
It always amazes me that you're able to do that.
Yeah, or other TV stuff. I'm working for all sorts at the minute, so it's a good idea to sort of record close to watching. Frankly.
Yeah, that's what I like to do as well.
And today we're talking about the Night Flier.
One 101 Bravo Lima. Come in, over. I can't have you sitting in the middle of my runway. Respond, over.
Another Stephen King, our third in a row, right? Stephen King. So we've done the Firestarter, we've done Silver Bullet, now we're doing Night Flier.
Indeed, we got hooked on the King.
Yes, we did, and this is from 1997. It's based on a short story from his collection Nightmares and Dreamscapes. It was originally published in other collections, but it made its way into Nightmares and Dreamscapes. I think it was first published in 1988, so this is 9 years after its first publication. And directed and co-written by Mark Pavia. And we've got Miguel Ferrer as Richard Dees, the main character. Now, both of us kind of took in the audiobook version, and both of us watched the movie. And there are very similar, but we'll be more talking about the movie, but we might talk about some of the stuff in the book. The only thing I will say is it's a great story.
Yeah,
to read or listen to. Great little story.
And it's not long either.
No, it's not a long read.
Maybe an hour, like very
hour and a
short.
half was the audiobook.
Yeah.
Which the movie is as well, actually. Funny enough.
Yeah, about the same length.
Now, obviously, written content. It's much more inner dialogue, inner monologues going on and stuff like that. Whereas in a film, you have to show it. So they've kind of dealt with the that aspect of it, because it would be quite a short story if it was just literally the filmed audio story, written story. They've dealt with it by sort of adding elements to the story that work quite well, in my opinion. And we can sort of touch on those as we hit them. So Miguel Ferrer is Richard Dees, the tabloid reporter, who begins... Basically, there's a killer going around apparently draining blood. So this reporter thinks it's someone who thinks they're a vampire. But we know better, don't we? We
Indeed.
know better. It did have a limited theatrical release, and it was also first premiered on television on HBO on the year it was made. So its theatrical release was very short.
Yeah, I was trying to think back, and I was like, because even back then I liked Dracula and vampire movies. So I was like, man, I don't remember ever hearing anything about this in the theater. So it must have been a very small
limited,
yeah, which is unfortunate. I think I think.
Oh, apparently I didn't realise it hit in the US. It was theatrically released after the HBO premiere. So
it was, which was strange.
Which is odd. Yeah.
Very strange, because I mean, not everybody has HBO, granted, or had HBO, I should say, but still. I would think that they would have been like, okay, this is going to really affect, people actually going to see it in the theater, because kind of the mentality here in the U.S. is, okay, once it's been on television, it's not as big or important anymore as it is in the theater.
Yeah, I think that was correct as the sensibilities of that time, and for up to quite recently. But these days, there's a lot of old movies get redone on the cinema, and they're popular. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's cool to go see an old film like Predator, for example. I went to a Predator screening. It was awesome. Awesome.
Man, I bet I'd love to see that. And I was thinking recently, because I saw like Lord of the Rings came back into the theater, which I didn't get to see that, but I really need to make an effort to see some of these in the theater, because there's just nothing like that theatrical experience. As good as our home setups are now, I feel like the size of the screen and the sound quality, just nothing beats the theater. But
as long as there's no one being annoying or there's no distractions, it's the best way to watch a movie by far.
Absolutely.
But if there's distractions, it's not. If there's noisy people, or the lighting's not good, or it's a bit underlit, or the sound's a bit too low or too high, it can be a bit annoying. But yeah. Well, I did post about getting feedback about this, and none of it's spoilery, so I can sort of go through it now. I did post that we're kind of obsessed with Stephen King, and we've decided we're going to take on the Night Flier. Has anyone seen it? We got some feedback from Tish Greer. Hi Tish.
Hey, she said, good to hear from you.
Seen it and enjoyed it. Quite an interesting take on the old vampire. Yes, I agree.
Indeed.
And then also some feedback from Kevin Matthews, who says, a fun adaptation of the story, and it gets bonus points for being a rare, full-blooded lead role for the great and much missed Miguel Ferrer.
I agree.
Yeah, and Tish Greer agrees. He was so great in this. Absolutely. He
was awesome.
The reason to watch this film is Miguel Ferrer. It would have been a decent film with someone else, but Miguel Ferrer is the boss here, right? It's so good to see it. I love Miguel Ferrer. He's a great as Albert in Twin Peaks. He's great in other stuff. He's good in comedy. If you've seen Hot Shots Part 2, for example, he's excellent in that. And he's awesome. He's absolutely awesome as Dees in this. This is by far the best thing about this film, though I have to say there's some other good stuff about it, but Miguel Ferrer is awesome in this. And you know what? I was describing this to someone, in fact my son, and he said, what's it? And I said, it's kind of, and then the penny dropped. And I've seen this film a few times, and it never occurred to me. I've read this. This is basically kind of an update of Kolchak, the Night Stalker. If you think about it.
Yeah, you're right. Wow, I hadn't thought about that, Mark.
But with Miguel Ferrer being Kolchak.
Right.
A different Kolchak, a hard-bitten, cynical, cold, sort of grim, but he's still funny. Yeah. He's still funny.
He is,
so in many respects, when King wrote this, he was thinking of Kolchak. I don't know.
You have to wonder, because it is. I mean, I guess I didn't really think about it when watching it, but now that you mention it, I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what it is.
When you think about these sort of shows, really, this sort of story really lends itself to when the protagonist is an FBI agent or some sort of police presence or a reporter. Right. Those are the two ones that kind of they do it. Other shows do it. Like Supernatural. The Winchester brothers are not either of those, but they often pretend to be, don't they? In fact, there's one point in this film where Dees actually pretends to be an FBI agent.
I got a kick out of that.
I was thinking of Albert, which he doesn't do in the written story. He does not do that. He kind of keeps on the legal side of things. But there's stuff in this which is totally... Why is he allowed to do that? He's just taking pictures of dead bodies and no one's picking him up on it and things like that.
Kicking doors open and...
Yeah.
It's like, dude, if anyone saw you doing that, they would call the cops,
That's right,
but he's an interesting character because he's such a dirtbag, but at the same time, he's a very interesting kind of dirtbag who has obviously seen just so much destruction and just the worst of humankind that we're kind of interested to see I guess where he's going. Like, is he gonna go off his rails, because he's not a nice guy. And it's interesting that you have the reporter the female reporter to sort of balance him out, because she's quite the opposite. She's a good kid,
Yeah, well, he calls her Jimmy Olsen. He refers to her, which is a great bit of shorthand, right?
Yes,
great
absolutely.
bit of shorthand. When apparently who is he talking to? I mean, Miguel Ferrer's got chops with Stephen King because he was in The Stand, wasn't he? He played Lloyd Henreid, the Randolph Flagg's right-hand man, right?
Yeah, an absolute classic, The Stand. I mean, I remember seeing that as a kid. Like, it sticks with you. That's how good it was. But anyway, I digress on that one too. We'll have to cover that at some point, Mark.
Yeah. Apparently, Miguel Ferrer became aware of the Night Flier while filming the Stand miniseries.
Oh, really?
And then also been told he was considered for a role in it. And he said he didn't know the story. But he said, I read it, and he said, I thought, great story, but I don't see a movie in that. He just didn't see it be anything other than a short story. But then they sent him a script, and he read it, and he thought, this is quite ingenious, what they've added. And the main thing they've added is this other reporter, Catherine Blair, who I thought was really good in this. She was really good. I haven't seen this actress in anything else I'm aware of, but I thought she did a good job.
Yeah, I really like the kind of balance she adds to the story, because she is, like I said, just kind of a nice kid who's just getting into the reporting game, Yeah. But that is a difference from the short story, which I think it works fine without her in the short story too, because you do have so much kind of inner monologue going on.
Yeah, but we get to know Richard Dees quite well, and that he's kind of psychopathic in that he's got very little empathy for people.
Right.
He doesn't really understand being friendly, but he knows how to put it on to get his way and things like that. So that's kind of interesting, and that comes across in this movie adaptation too. He's much the same, though he says it more explicitly, especially when he's explaining to Blair, the whys and wherefores of being a reporter in this business, right?
Yeah. Ooh, great scene.
Basically, it's a great scene, and fresh only in this film, not in the story at all. They've constructed it from his character, from lines by King in the book. They've reconstructed it as part of the dialogue in this. Basically, it's don't print what you believe, and don't believe what you print. Basically.
Indeed,
is what I also quite like the character who's a little more expanded in the film of his editor Morrison.
I did too.
I thought it was good.
There's one point where he, I was actually like thinking, man, is he like the devil or something? Because he loves playing the two characters against each other, but then he's also like cynically laughing, like just evilly laughing about it at one point. I was like, wow, okay, this guy's kind of creepy. But yeah, he did really well too. I agree.
And I also like they basically lifted some of it. His dialogue was derived from the short story by basically Dees had figured stuff out himself and was explaining it in the short story. In this, they had the editor explain some of the stuff to Dees as a way, he's called Dwight Renfield now. Dwight Renfield was a character played by Dwight Fry in Bela Lugosi's trailer, so he explains all that. Whereas in the short, in the audio book or the written story, that's what Dees figures out. Right, it's a cute name for someone who thinks they're a vampire, Dwight Renfield. So there is that,
which I liked. Of course, I think anyone who is a fan of Dracula or vampires is going to mark out for that. And I mean, at this point in our modern age, who doesn't know Dwight Fry, right?
Yeah, indeed. Dwight Fry's amazing. Especially
everything he's in. Yeah, but Dracula specifically.
I mean, he was a great. Was it Fritz in the Frankenstein, the Hunchback assistant Fritz?
I believe so. Yeah,
as well. But his real standout is always going to be Renfield, and quite rightly, it's an amazing performance.
It is. Yeah.
So essentially, they find a pilot has been flying from small airport to small airport, creating havoc and murder, but not really that concerned with covering his trail.
No.
So basically, from the off, knows the plane ID number, knows what type of plane it is, and he knows about planes. This guy, he's got his own plane.
He does, yeah. I thought that was kind of cool.
So he knows about planes, and he knows that the Cessna plane he's after has got a cargo bay big enough to fit someone in if they are huddled up. And he thinks this bloke is probably a big enough nut. He thinks he's a vampire and he has to hide during the day. And he probably hides in his own, hold.
Right.
And then he starts to get to question people, right? Essentially, the rookie has dug out the story enough to make it worthwhile. And then he's given the case, which he's all right. This is how they've done it in the film. In the story, he just he's happy to take it. He just has it. He can smell blood already, right?
I mean, he's a tabloid reporter, so he's pretty skeevy, as you can imagine. And like we said, he's definitely covered the mayhem and blood, and all that's kind of laid out in the very beginning for us. Just how he happily digs up graves. He happily photographs corpses without any permission. What gets me is coppers don't seem to stop him. If he comes to a roadside accident, they don't seem to stop him. Yeah, I know when that happened in the film, I was thinking, okay, I don't think they would really let anybody do that, press or not, but he just doesn't care. He's like a man on a mission to just photograph everything that's sort of wrong with humankind, I guess, or terrible even. Yeah,
and essentially he asks questions. He meets the first death. He meets up with a guy who also runs the same little airport and questions him, and bribing him by giving him money. He kind of finds out there was a big pile of dirt with maggots in it under where the plane was parked. So he started thinking, this guy really thinks he's a vampire, and stuff like that. We also find out there was an elderly couple get killed, but the woman went and got a special makeover, right?
This part was cool.
Younger. Yeah. But they expanded on it more in the film than in the book, but it was kind of cool that it's like that these used deduction, like Sherlock Holmes, sort of, okay, she wanted to look more attractive. That means that this guy somehow got invited. He got invited in.
Right. Had dinner.
He was charismatic. He made her want to appear younger, but at the same time, the husband was looking weaker and older and more feeble. So possibly he was only draining the blood from the husband at first. And then he just murders them all. And it's very bloody. Let's talk about the effects. What did you think of the effects?
Oh, I really liked it. I thought they were well done. It's obviously on a budget, right? But I thought they worked.
Practical effects,
practical.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah, really
exactly.
well done. There's also sort of. I should say before we even go on, we're going to spoil this.
Indeed.
I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters. It's a fairly straightforward film, and B, it's quite old, so
it is.
It's nearly 30 years old.
Yeah, even if you have it spoiled, worth a watch, I think.
Yeah, I mean, just seeing Miguel Ferrer in a lead role is terrific, right?
It's awesome. Yeah, he does such a great job.
I would definitely have booked in for a series with this reporter if it had worked out that way. He was a great presence and it was interesting. So he's such a cynical reporter, sort of investigating the worst sides of human life. It would have made a great TV series.
It really would have, yeah. I would have definitely been in for that. And, I mean, he's got such a screen presence. It's just, there are certain actors, Mark, where you see them on screen, you're just like, man, this guy has it, that kind of intangible that you can't just nail down. And I think he definitely has that kind of it factor where you have to see what he's going to do on screen, which is really what you want from your lead character, someone unique who is memorable. And Miguel Ferrer is definitely that.
Yeah, and then we start. Basically, his editor wants a bit more of the details, but he doesn't give it to him. So at that point, he sends Blair on after him, right, to sort of prompt him to sort of provide some copy. But he's got a name, the Night Flyer, because someone keeps talking about a Night Flyer came in and all this, so he knows that. And essentially, he starts to track him down. He's getting closer and closer, but then he starts getting weird dreams and physical reality warnings. Basically, he sees a blood written on a window saying "Stay away." For example, that would be enough for me.
Oh yeah,
personally.
Me too. But this guy is not dissuaded. Like he's going
not decided. Though
there is,
it did make me laugh. At one point, it gets so bad, he goes, "Okay, I've had enough," and but it's too late by then, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. That's the point, and we'll get to that, of course. But what did you think of the kind of the concept of a vampire like flying a plane, kind of flying into these places, and then feeding essentially?
It feels like it's someone who does not care if they're leaving a trail, if they're doing that, right?
Yeah, I thought
it's so obvious.
Like, man, not too subtle, but it's a unique kind of concept for the vampire, I think, right?
Yeah, it is. So essentially, Blair contacts him. We've already mentioned there was a great scene between Blair and Deese early on, wasn't there? Where he explained the whys and wherefores. That was a good scene.
Yeah,
and well acted by both. Yeah. By both. But eventually, she contacts him, says, "I've been told to go," and he's a bit annoyed. And he says, "Okay, let's pair up." But he locks her in a closet, doesn't he? When he's really thinks he's about to catch, so she's left out of it.
It's funny because I thought he had just like left, and I'm thinking, well, she probably has her own car, so she's gonna go after him, and then he appears behind her and throws that blanket over, like you say, throws her in the closet, and I was like, well, nope, like she's not going anywhere.
Yeah, it's like shooting fish in a barrel or something like that. It's just it's too easy. He doesn't believe in sharing his bylines, basically, and he goes to the airport, finds the plane, opens the interior, and it's absolutely covered in blood. Every
it's
surface
nasty.
is covered in blood. And this is an interesting one. It was definitely not in the short story. He finds a book saying photographs and starts looking through old photographs of this man and woman. And then we see like an old 20s shot of this man in with an airplane and, and a pilot's outfit, the hat and the goggles from that era. Which, this is our vampire, right?
Yeah,
he started
really
flying
cool.
Well, before he became a vampire in the 20s, and, he loves flying.
Yeah, I thought all that was really neat.
Some interesting backstory in photographic form. He goes into the terminal, and there's, like, loads of torn up bodies, basically. Really bloody. This is an adult film.
Oh, yeah, this is a hard R for sure.
And at that, he starts taking photographs, but at this point is where he says, "Okay, I've had enough." And he goes to the bathroom and starts throwing up. And then, as he's throwing up, he's looking in a mirror and he hears footsteps, but there's no one there. And then he sees blood hitting a urinal. Someone.
I thought that was actually like it was funny, but it was cool at the same time.
And straight from the story. That's exactly how he encounters the vampire in the story.
Really well done too.
Yeah, and he's like, he won't look. I did notice one thing. Did you notice when he went to various scenes earlier on, the mirrors were smashed?
I did notice that. Yeah. Particularly in the home of the farmer and the wife.
Definitely. There was one bit they missed out, though. There was, it made me chuckle. It was a bit of continuity error, I think. There's one bit, he's looking at all these broken mirrors for a doorway, but if you look behind him, there's a big mirror on the wall behind him, and it's not broken.
Oh, I didn't notice that. Oh, that's funny.
I think that's an error.
It has to be, right?
Anyway, all the mirrors are broken. So, yeah, I thought the vampire was just smashing the mirrors. Right, didn't like mirrors, but actually, what happens is, as this vampire strides through the bathroom, the mirrors start smashing on their own, which is interesting.
Really cool.
Now, one little factoid about mirrors and vampires, which I don't think is often relayed, which is this: why are vampires not reflected in mirrors? I don't know the whys and wherefores, but mirrors are created by a spray that involves silver. On glass.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
So, which suggests to me vampires would also dislike mirrors intensely because they've got silver in. And it might be that's why they're smashing, the reaction of vampire to silver. But that could be just me speculating way too far into that.
Oh, that's a cool fact, I think. I never realized that. I just always assumed, maybe it was because vampires do not have a soul or something, something of that.
Well, it might be tied to that because there's the other thing of, they can't cross running water now because they're not entirely corporeal.
Right.
And they will just disperse in water, and light and mirrors might be to do with that too. I wonder, can they see their reflection in water? I don't know.
Right.
Presumably not, but I mean that discounts what I just said about silver and mirrors if they can't see the reflection in water. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean these rules always change depending on who the author of the book or the script is, right? But I did think it was pretty cool when Dees goes into the airport, and he sees the one guy, and he's got the chain like stuffed in his mouth, and he pulls it out, and it's a crucifix,
which means the vampire's not bothered by crucifixes.
Right. I was like, oh, that's just a brutal way to show that. But again, as we said, this is a violent film, especially that final act in the airport.
Yeah. I like the fact the vampire has let him live, even though Dees has been chasing. Now, in the book, there's none of that warnings to keep away. The vampire's just aware of him. We should also say, in the bloody cockpit, there's all of a copy of Dees's other headlines, isn't there?
I thought that was cool.
Again, which indicates the vampire is aware of his work and is letting him live for whatever reason. In fact, the vampire at this point refers to him as "you're my would-be biographer." Doesn't he?
Right. I thought that was cool.
Which suggests, the vampire's kind of, his vanity is letting this guy live, right?
I got that impression as well. He's enjoying the attention. Yeah.
Yeah, so he comes up behind Renfield and sort of holds him by the neck and sort of says, "Do not follow me again. I'm not going to kill you, but do not keep following me." And walks off. We have to mention he's got a proper vampire cape he has through the whole film and a massive collar, so you can't really see his features. All you see is kind of wispy hair, right?
Which I thought was that was cool, Yeah. It adds kind of that suspense, but he's also definitely got the Dracula vibes going on, which I, absolutely love, and I'm marked out for. Yeah. As they say in wrestling, Mark, they say you're a marker, you mark out. I'm probably explaining that way too much, but
yeah. You said that in the last episode, I think. All right.
I think I did. I mean, that's a term I use often, so I should just probably explain it, and that's why I use that term. But I was like, okay, this is cool. when we see that cape. And that cape is awesome, by the way.
Yeah.
I really want one of those, Mark.
Yeah, get one. Treat yourself.
Yeah, just walk around with it every day. No one will say anything.
Yeah, why not? I should mention there's something in the story, in the written and the film story that we haven't mentioned yet, which is the marks on the neck are not two puncture wounds that we used to in vampires. There's one big hole on either side of the neck, one on the carotid, one on the jugular, right?
Indeed.
Yeah. And that isn't really covered in the written story. It's not really explained. It's just he must use a pile driver, but there's never any blood anywhere. Now in this, we see why that is the case, don't we?
Indeed, we do.
So Dee's actually says, "No, I've got to see your face." And the vampire's like, "All right." Turns around and starts walking back. It's in shadow at first, but then we see his face, and he's like a rotting old sort of face, isn't it? Without even a nose.
Yeah,
it's just the eyes and mouth.
Almost like a bloated face. It reminded me of Pumpkinhead a little bit.
Yeah, but when it opens his mouth, one massive tooth comes from the top and one from the bottom, like a canine tooth. But right in the middle of the mouth, and presumably it latches on either side of the neck with this mouth and drinks. So and it grabs it after he's seen his face. Renfield lets him see his face, but he says, right, if you chase it... He also... actually, I should have mentioned, the vampire also mentions they're both in the same business. They're, they chase death. Is kind of the thing, right? And they're vampires on their victims, and it is implying tabloid journalists are like that. But then he kind of rips his own wrist and makes Dees drink the blood. And then we get this really cool scene, which is not in the book, because in the book, the vampire merely leaves Dees at the site, just leaves, right? That's how it ends. So and you're kind of wondering, has Dees been driven mad? Has he got to a point he can no longer continue being a reporter because of what he's seen now? It's all this kind of stuff. But in the film, he makes Dees drink his blood, and then we go into it's almost like hell, right? Everything's black and white, and it's really cool. It looks great.
It's awesome.
It looks great.
Yeah. I love this scene.
And then all these people start rising out as vampires, like vampire revenants, all these victims.
Right.
And indeed, we don't just see the victims, we see people from Dees' own past. We see one of the reporters he talked about, Blair to, who couldn't take it anymore and killed herself in the bath, right?
Yeah.
We see her. Dees can't stand it, so he goes and breaks a fire, and gets an axe out and starts chopping at them. And then we see what the policemen who turn up see, him chopping up these bodies of these people at the airport. So he looks like the mad person that's killed all these people.
Yeah.
And he's standing there with an axe, sort of, saying stuff. And Blair also turns up. And basically, as far as they're concerned, they found the night flight. It's Dees chopping up these bodies. And of course, what do you think? That's ingenious, because Dees has been flying around in a plane to the same locations.
Yep.
So Dees starts to run at them with the axe, and the cops shoot him dead. Now, interestingly, Blair sees Renfield in the plane taking off, but then she just takes photographs and she gets published a story which presents Dees as the night flyer.
Yeah, she sort of takes his advice and
lets him be.
Yeah. Which it's kind of a shame, really, that also that she's going down that same path. I thought,
Yeah, but she's probably saving her own life by not continuing to pursue the vampire, right?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, yeah. Not a guy you want to mess with.
Now, it didn't do that well because it was only and it's reviewed quite poorly. Rotten Tomatoes has it at 4.1.
I was amazed at how low the scores were for this, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, looking at some of the other critiques, people were saying it lacked frills and stuff like that. Yeah, it was baggy in the middle. There was a whole section in the middle.
Yeah.
It was kind of much more procedural. But
I thought
a kick-ass start and a kick-ass end, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't mind that kind of tension building, and I thought there was enough tension in those scenes to like keep it very interesting. Like I was never ever bored throughout this entire film. Like I felt like, okay, I gotta see what happens next.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like Leonard Maltin, his review in particular, that one really. It kind of surprised me because
he didn't like the end, right?
Yeah, he doesn't.
We like the end.
I do. I thought it was awesome.
The end is the best bit in many respects.
Yeah. Oh, totally, man. And I mean, I like how it builds to that big climax at the end, And I mean, you have cool moments between, but oh man, the end is kind of what the whole film is really building towards, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd say that the good things about this film are Mel Ferrer generally, right?
Yeah.
Miguel Ferrer generally. I say Mel, I meant Miguel. I like the opening thing where he's laying stuff out to Blair, but I think that the final act where he's at Wilmington is kind of awesome. The whole going into a different universe thing after he drinks the blood. Oh, that's all new. That isn't in the original story. That's all new. And the resolution, different resolution. So cool. I think it really worked. I didn't think it was a great film, but I liked it well enough, and I was enjoyed watching it again. But it did feel a little baggy in the middle to me. That's all.
Yeah, I can definitely see that criticism. It's a shame because it sounds like they were talking about doing more. Night Flyer at some point, but it didn't ever come to be.
It's a shame. Yeah, it's a shame.
And it's funny because I was thinking earlier, before we went on air, I was like, man, I would love to see this remade. And then I thought, you know what? No, I wouldn't. Probably
Miguel
would
Ferrer
not
nailed it, right?
Exactly.
I think this is his only lead role, actually, and I really like it.
Oh, yeah. He's exceptional.
It's worth watching because of him. Really, a rewatching, I should say, because of him. But yeah, I don't know. A sequel might have worked, but it really works on Deese, the character of Deese, and now he's not in it. What are you gonna do, right?
Yeah, I don't know if there's anyone who could play this role. Like, it would just not feel as good, I don't think, with any other actor.
What would be a mad remake if Peter Capaldi made it? Because he does cynical and obnoxious really well. If you watch his, the political drama, I forgot what it's called. Before he was Doctor Who, he was in a British comedy about politics, and he was amazing in that. Really sweary though.
Oh man, I gotta look this up.
His name was Malcolm. I'm trying to think what the show's called. Malcolm. He's basically a spin doctor.
Gotcha.
And he's really obnoxious and horrible to everyone. Malcolm Tucker is his name in that show, and it's called The Thick of It. It's extremely British and strong stuff. I mean, really strong.
Gotcha.
It's not your average lightweight comedy. It's horror. He'd be a good cynical reporter. I could see that perhaps working. But you know what? Miguel Ferrer nailed this. Any final thoughts?
Man, I really enjoyed it, Mark. I think this is worth both reading and watching. I like the book as well as the film. I think this is actually very underrated by critics. It's weird because it's such a mixed bag when you look up like stuff on, say, Rotten Tomatoes. That's kind of older. The reviews are not that great, but then if you come to modern day now, people are like, okay, this is actually like really awesome, and it's got a kind of a cult following now. So yeah, I think it's cool, and I'd like to see more in this kind of world. I don't know if King will ever do anything with it, but if he did, I'd be game for more.
Yeah, Yeah. I just think it was a well put together film. As I say, the flaw in it was baggy in the middle. It felt like a lot of it was a bit padded. I feel like it would have made a much better hour and 15-minute film, maybe. But even so, 19 minutes, it's in and out, and it's got such a good ending. You kind of forget, because I've seen it a few times. I'm more aware of the bagginess in the middle. I think you just forget that when you've seen it once. Because it ends so well. It ends really effectively. And especially both the effects and the resolution and Miguel Ferrer, it just makes it work. So, but having said that, I don't mind the bagginess because it's Miguel Ferrer, right? So, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I feel the same.
Okay, let's get to it. I would give this a 3.5 out of 5. That feels about right to me. What about you?
Well, this was a first watch for me, so maybe I'm just coming off the high of it. But man, I really love this. I'd probably give it probably a solid 4 out of 5.
That's solid. Yeah.
I lean more towards a 5, actually, believe it or not. But I feel like that's too high. Well, I feel like maybe because you make a good point. It is rather baggy in the middle, and for a first time watcher, maybe you don't notice it as much. At least I didn't. But I think it is fair to say that it's a little baggy. So I would stick with a 4, maybe 4.5 or something like that. But it's for me it was really good. But there again, Mark, I love my vampire stuff. So so I'm a little biased.
I think what it is when you rewatch, you're kind of waiting for the end. Once he gets into his procedural stuff, the stuff with the old couple's really interesting. But after that, there's things like, why is this in? Like, he just pulls up a road accident, starts photographing people, and it doesn't really have anything to do with the plot. For example, it just triggers him. He starts triggering future memories. But apart from that, it has really nothing to do with anything. Stuff like that is what I'm talking about. So you're once you get into that state, you're kind of just waiting for the end to happen. However, it's kind of interesting to see how early you detect the vampire warnings. Things like that.
It's very early on. Like, even when he's just going back, he goes to the grave of the guy who's been killed, and like he kind of like when he touches the grave with his bloody hand, because he's like wanting to see, I guess, if the guy's going to come back, right? And like he has that kind of flash where he like connects sort of with the vampire. So
there seems to be a bit of a psychic link, which I don't think was there in the original story, but it has been established in this film. I also want to say I think the casting's really good. I feel like with a slightly better, I don't know, the script was still really good, but there was just scenes that just didn't add to anything.
Blair,
the lady playing Blair was good. I liked the first bloke he interviewed. He was channeling a bit of Fred Gwynn from Pet Sematary, wasn't he?
I got that too. I got the same vibes. I was like, yep, even the main accent,
Yeah, main accent, really cool.
That was cool.
Yeah. So, I'll give it 3.5, but I do like this. I really quite enjoy it.
It's fun. Yeah.
And particularly good at the first half and the last half. The first act and the last act. Very solid. So, anyway, I think we can kind of wind things up there. So, do you want to lead us out?
Yeah, I'd be happy to, Mark. Thank you again for listening. Let me start that one more time, Mark. I'm just all over the place. Thanks to everybody for listening to the United Nations of Horror. I should mention, Mark, that we have lost the domain for unhpodcast.com. And that was intentional. I was just like, I don't really think we need it at this point because, we're really nowadays everything is connected to a podcasting service like Apple or Spotify, and we're on both of those. And of course, you can also find us on YouTube, and we're also on Facebook. So there's multiple options for people to kind of connect with us now. So just to let people know, that's sort of the only reason we've let that URL expire. But I do want to mention the Facebook URL. That's facebook.com/groups/UN of Horror. And it's, like I say, just Google us. Actually, if you Google us, the first thing that's going to come up is our YouTube. But for any kind of podcatcher, I don't even know if that's the proper term anymore, Mark.
It is, yeah.
But whatever you're using to listen to your podcast, you should be able to find us on there. Just enter in United Nations of Horror, and we should be the first ones. So, Mark, thank you as always. This was a blast. I really I enjoyed this film, and I always enjoy our conversations, of course. And thanks to everyone who is listening. We appreciate all you guys, and we appreciate your feedback, and thanks very much. So, Mark, bye from me.
And bye from me.
And we'll see you next time, right here on the United Nations of Horror.
The United Nations of Horror is a podcast about all things horror. From thrillers of yesteryear to today's modern horror, we are here to present fun and intelligent conversation about the genre films we love. Join us and please help spread the word about the United Nations of Horror podcast and videocast to horror fans across the globe. Find the podcast on all fine podcasting services. Join us on Facebook by simply going to facebook.com and entering in United Nations of Horror. You can also find us on YouTube by going to youtube.com and searching for United Nations of Horror podcast.